Hello guys, welcome back. Today's video is going to be about the iPad like we discussed last week when we were discussing about the iPhone. And also if you look at our website, you'll see that the iPad pricing is finally up. It's took a little bit to get there, but we finally were able to put it up. And as like I said, this is a continuation of the first video, which is the iPhone. And now we're gonna do the iPad, which is part 2, and part 3. I intend on doing the MacBook series. So let's begin here with the iPad Mini. This is the smallest of the three, and it is about the second cheapest of the three. These usually start at $399. Dependable discounts as well. So the iPad Mini is for the people that want small as priority. They want this is really small. You could shove this in a book bag. You could shove it in a purse, and it what I call e-readers. They just want book. Maybe surf the web a little bit. These in the business aspect very much. This is more for, like I said, your e-readers. Someone that wants a tablet and wants something slightly bigger, but they don't want they don't want a 10-inch screen. They want something that's small, compact, lightweight. This is perfect. All of these support the Apple Pencil. This one supports, as of times of this recording, the first generation Apple Pencil, I believe. As you can see here, it comes in various colors. And I actually have an older model of these. I have an iPad 2 second generation, and I use it as a boat GPS. iPads are great for GPSs. So on that note, every iPad comes with two options with connectivity. You have the Wi-Fi only and the Wi-Fi and cellular. So especially if you're an Uber driver or someone that wants to use this as a GPS, I've had to tell them many times. I've had a couple of people that they use these, like me, they use an iPad as a GPS because there's quite a bit of advantages to it. One, it's not as expensive as buying a full-blown like Garmin or Raymarine. Two, since it can be kept off the boat, it's not exposed to weather when the boat is just sitting there on the dock or sitting on its trailer. And since it only uses USB to charge, you don't have to wire up a whole GPS to a dashboard. You can just plug it in. Many boats nowadays come with a USB port built in, and to add one is really easy. It's just connect it to the keyed switch if you want it on and off. If you want to be able to turn it on and off with the key, or you can connect it directly to the battery. You plug it in with a USB port, and it always stays charged. So if you're going to be using this, like I said, for Uber or any sort of navigation, and you have the Wi-Fi only model, you will need a special Bluetooth GPS adapter where it's actually a GPS receiver that connects via Bluetooth to the iPad. So because if you have the Wi-Fi only one, the Wi-Fi only iPad does not have GPS built in. If you want it with a GPS receiver built in, you have to go for the cellular one. And even then, I normally tell people, hey, especially if you're a boater that's going to be boating along the coast and you always have cell service, I usually tell them, hey, it's not worth getting the connectivity one with LTE because since you're so close, it'll be cheaper in the long run to just get the Bluetooth GPS receiver. And believe it or not, the one I use is called the Dual, and it's more accurate than the GPS will ever be on any phone or iPad. And with the service that you use, I've seen carriers do it for they're about $5 a month for the cell service. But again, if you're going to be like an Uber where you're always in town and you're always using and you're never traveling away from cell service, then it's easier to just use the Bluetooth part and have it. And I find the Bluetooth more accurate, which is why I recommend it. So like I said, the iPad Mini 3 is more for that crowd where they just really want to read and stuff, and maybe browse the web on a slightly bigger screen than on a phone. So the next one we have here is the regular iPad. This is my go-to one for 90% of all people out there. And the reason why I say this is because most people are buying an iPad to use for going on the internet, typing up a document, watching Netflix, reading, basic stuff. And this iPad, I also have this iPad. I have the 6th generation. Is a very good tablet. I've seen people that they draw on it. In fact, this one also supports the 1st generation iPad. The Apple Pencil. And the palm rejection is really good, where people actually where artists actually draw with this tablet. They no longer use pen and paper or anything like that. They draw. Everything that they draw is done on the iPad. There's a bunch of accessories for this. As you see, the older one, like the 6th gen, doesn't have these 3 little communication ports, so it uses a Bluetooth keyboard. But on the newer ones, they have it like these, which you have the 3 little communication ports, like the iPad Air and iPad Pro that we'll get into. That it doesn't need Bluetooth, so it saves your battery a little bit, and it attaches magnetically, so it's always solid to the iPad. Other common attachments is they'll get a screen protector that has a rough finish, so when you're writing, it feels like paper. And I've tried a couple of those. Those are actually really nice if you're an artist. Schools use these a lot. In fact, I recommend these to schools because this is the cheapest one you can get. And even though it's the cheapest one, it's an amazing build quality. It runs very well. It's very fast. This one doesn't have the latest processor. The iPad Mini and the iPad usually have processors that are a couple years old, but since iOS is usually very well optimized, they run very well. You can multitask on these two. With the regular iPad and the iPad Mini, you can have 2 screens open, and you can open up a third, which suspends the other 2 if you want to answer a message really quick. That's another thing about having Apple products. Again, I'm not sponsored or anything. This is just my opinion of what I think you should be using for your business or for whatever you want to use it for. A lot of engineering firms actually use this to give to their inspectors because they use it as a mobile checklist, especially when you have the LTE connectivity, which I think is worth it on these, especially if you are out and about like an inspector where you're taking photos, writing things down, crossing things off on a checklist, submitting reports on the go. This is the perfect iPad for that. And the camera is not too bad. iPad cameras never tended to be great, especially on these lower end models. When it comes to the iPad Air and the iPad Pro, which we'll talk to next, the camera is usually way better. But this is a very good tablet, especially for schools and Montessori's and daycares and all that when they want to give their students a tablet or a computer to take home. Is because, one, these are inexpensive. Apple, especially for educational discounts, the educational discount is usually pretty good on this, so the price comes down even more. When it comes to repair, they're really easy, and they're also very inexpensive, and parts are easy to come by extremely readily. So, especially in schools where kids, drop them, they spill their drinks on it, it's perfect because you can get it repaired in the same day that usually it happens. And it's inexpensive to get back up and running once it does get damaged. Again, back to the drawing and the Apple Pencil, is the palm rejection is really good, especially for a tablet that's about $300, and you can actually get these on sale. And from the Apple educational discount, a lot of times for below $300, I've actually seen them where you can get them for about $250, which is nice when you're ordering a large amount of these for students. Since it works with the Apple Pencil isn't like just some, like that pen that you can buy with a touch sensitive rubber tip on it. It's actually an active pencil where depending on how hard you press it and what angle you have it at, it'll act like a real pencil. Where if you have it sideways, the ink is more broad, and if you push down on it harder, more ink comes out, so the ink is darker. The writing to text is actually really good on this. So what students do normally is they'll write all their notes on the notes app in the iPad, and it'll automatically convert it to text. So they're not going back saying like, oh, like what did I mean by this word? I don't remember what it was because I can't understand my own handwriting. But this automatically does it for you, where it'll convert it to text. You could also highlight things in books and stuff, and students really like this because it allows them to have all their books into one thing, and you don't have to have this huge book bag carrying heavy books all day, every day. You just have it in your iPad, a little thing. You don't even need a book bag for this. You can literally just have it in a little hand case, and you have all your books, everything you need to study. You can do your homework on it. All around a very good tablet, especially for the educational market. So now we have the iPad Air. The iPad Air is what I would call the person that needs the pro features but doesn't necessarily want the pro price. So you may not need everything of the iPad Pro, but you don't want just the basic iPad because you want to do some more things, or you like the nicer screen. So, that's where the iPad Air comes into play. Again, we have various colors to go by. And again, we have the little connector here for the keyboard. So the iPad Air, now you're getting into the more like what the iPhone looks like, where you have the rounded display. You have Face ID. This one doesn't have Face ID. It actually has the fingerprint sensor. This is somewhat like an iPhone XR of iPads, but again, this one it's a little bit more expensive than the regular iPad. But if you really need something that requires a little bit more horsepower than the regular iPad, then this is kind of the iPad for you. There's not really much to talk about here. It's basically a lower spec version of the top iPad, which is the iPad Pro, which is what we're going to talk about now. So finally here with our iPad selection, we have the iPad Pro model. There's two different flavors you can pick here. You have the 11-inch and the 12.9. The screen technology is both the same, where all the other previous ones are LCD, known as the Retina. Here we have an OLED panel, which means organic LED, and this is what they call the liquid Retina, I believe. So here on the iPad Pro, now we have the fancy cameras. We have the dual, camera setup up here. We have the LiDAR, like we discussed in the previous episode of the iPhones, where it's sending out beams of light to measure objects and detect things. And this one has Face ID, just like your iPhone X series lineup. Instead of having a fingerprint, it uses your face to unlock it if you so desire. So the reason why you want to buy this one, which is consequently the most expensive one, is you are a person that is looking to replace their laptop computer because you, for some reason, don't like carrying it. It's too heavy, battery doesn't last long, whatever your reason is. If you're someone genuinely looking to replace your laptop with a tablet, or just replacing your laptop, or desktop in general, this is the iPad for you. This is what Apple intended the iPad Pro to be, your laptop computer replacement. And honestly, especially with the new M1 series of iPad Pro that you can buy, this is as close to you can get as a laptop replacement. So again, we have the two different flavors here. The 11-inch is what most people are going to get. It's a beautiful display. That OLED technology really makes colors pop out. Not that the other screens are bad from the Retina series. In fact, those are still very beautiful displays to look at, but this one will really leave you floored. Again, I'm not sponsored in any way, but this is the best display I've ever seen on any tablet ever. Um, the nice thing about these, and also why I say this is a genuine desktop replacement, is that these use USB-C. Both the iPad Air and the Pro use USB-C instead of the Lightning port connector, like on your iPhone. So you can actually buy a dock for this or a USB-C hub, and you can plug in SD card readers, full-size USBs, an Ethernet jack. So if you want, instead of using your Wi-Fi, you can use it hardwired. You can have a second screen with an HDMI out to display wherever you want. You know, that's what the USB-C port is for, on top of charging, obviously. So this one also does have an LTE model, and to me, the LTE is very worth it on this, especially if you're that kind of person that they only live in their house to sleep for a few hours and then you're immediately back on the road again because you just live that kind of lifestyle. You're always traveling, your business is mobile. To have an LTE on this is actually very worth it for you. Engineers love the big one as well as musicians. The reason why engineers like the big 12.9 is because the display is huge. You can view whole building plans on it without feeling constrained like you would on a laptop or on a phone. Musicians love it because music isn't available not that it isn't available, it's mostly printed on weird formats. They're either bigger than a regular sheet of paper, sometimes they're smaller than a regular sheet of paper. There's a bunch of attachments for iPads, especially for this one. One of them is a Bluetooth foot switch where they can use their feet to change the pages on music instead of having to actually go up and touch it or flip the paper over physically. Again, with the LiDAR, like we discussed in the previous video, the LiDAR allows you to scan whole rooms and set things up with AR and AI and all of that. So this is not something that I would use as a display for like navigation. It'd be nice if you're a captain on a boat to use this as a chart plotter, but again, that to me, this is not what you'd buy a Pro for. That's what the other iPads are for. But if you want to, you can use it. And to touch up on that one more time, if you are going to use this for navigation, again, not sponsored, the one that I use and that most people use is what they call Navionics. It's actually made by Garmin, or the maps are made by Garmin at least. There's a free version, which most people use, and then there's one that's about $40 a year. I actually have the $40 a year one. It gives you it'll actually plan a route for you based on the information you put in, like how fast your boat is, how much fuel it has, how much you normally use in a trip. If it's connected to the internet, it'll actually give you live weather updates. It'll also give you live tide data. And every day there's a new update for the map. So the map is updated whether you have the paid version or the free version. And it'll also tell you gas prices around the area. It'll also tell you, like food and stuff, if you want to stop really quick. It's actually a very nice app to have for navigating on the water. And of course, if you're using it as a GPS for Uber, you want to show your customers, where you're heading, how long it's going to take to get there. You have your standard Apple Maps, Google Maps, Waze, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, this is not a lot of companies give these out because, again, this is the most expensive one. Most companies and schools give out the regular iPad, which, again, is for 90% of the people out there. That's more than enough for what they need. But if you really need that horsepower to replace your laptop, these things are powerful. I mean, I've seen people edit whole movies on Photoshop, Adobe Photoshop. I've seen people download, I forgot what the program was. I'm not sure if it was FL Studio or whatnot, but they have music production apps, and with the ability to, plug in a USB-C hub and dock, you can connect all the instruments to it. you basically have a mobile studio with this. This is truly a high horsepower device. So if you are looking for something to replace your laptop and or need all the horsepower you can get in a mobile package, this is the one for you, the iPad Pro. So when it comes to Android tablets, there really is none. Not that there's none to buy, it's just that there's really none worthy. Back in the old days, I used to have a Toshiba tablet that actually had full-size USB ports and SD card readers. That was a nice one, but of course, like all good things must come to an end. They no longer make it because Toshiba sold that division. And Android tablets, usually the market, if you ask anyone, they tend to suck. The nice thing also about iPads is since they have a very good ecosystem. So if, let's say, your employee had an iPhone, like in our previous video, you gave them an iPhone, and if you have them a tablet, they could actually answer the text message on the tablet instead of having to stop what they're doing and pick up the phone. They could just pick it up. They could just quickly send the message and continue going. Another thing I didn't mention on the iPad Air is that the iPad Air also has USB-C, and the iPad Air also has a LCD panel instead of the OLED panel, and all the other LCD paneled iPads are 60 hertz. This one is 120 hertz, which means everything just runs like butter on this thing when you're scrolling. I'm telling you, it's the most beautiful display you'll probably ever look at in your life. And for the iPad Pro, again, your high horsepower needs, this will do it. So when it comes to cases, if you're going to be using it as a boat GPS, I recommend the LifeProof case. That actually makes it water resistant, just in case it gets splashed on. You don't have to worry about it getting wet. Especially get the one that has the built-in screen protector. When it comes to cases for all the other iPads, you want a regular case. There's a whole bunch of cases you could buy. Apple even sells cases for these where it'll actually turn one of these into a mini MacBook, where it looks like a MacBook when you open it. It has the keyboard of a MacBook. It's amazing. But that's the beauty of getting an iPad, because there's so many things out for it. You can basically customize it to your heart's delight. The closest Android one would be the Samsung, and again, I've had terrible luck with Samsungs when it comes to honoring their warranties and stuff, so I would normally stay away from it. But yep, this is the iPad lineup for at least 2021 when this video came out. These things change over time. Thank you very much for watching this video. See you all in the next one.